She didn't wake up one morning and suddenly lose interest in you. That's not how attraction actually dies. In psychology, attraction almost never collapses in one moment. It drains. Quietly. Invisibly. Until one day, you feel the distance and think it came out of nowhere. But here's the uncomfortable truth most men miss. There is always one specific internal shift that happens first, long before she pulls away emotionally. And once you understand this shift, you'll start seeing patterns you were completely blind to before. So the real question is, what exactly changes inside her mind before she ever changes how she treats you? In this video, you're going to understand the hidden psychological transition that turns interest into emotional detachment. Not theories, not motivational advice, but real behavioral psychology patterns based on how human attachment, novelty response, and emotional evaluation actually work. By the end of this, you'll be able to recognize the early stage signals of emotional withdrawal before they turn into full disconnection. And more importantly, you'll understand what not to do in that phase, because most men unknowingly accelerate the loss without realizing it. This connects directly to research in attachment theory, dopamine adaptation, and cognitive evaluation in romantic bonding. Let's go deep into it. Think about the early phase of attraction. She reacts emotionally. She laughs easily. She replies fast. There's warmth, unpredictability, excitement. But then something subtle changes. She doesn't stop talking to you, but she starts watching you differently. This is where psychology becomes interesting. The brain naturally shifts from emotional processing to analytical processing when novelty decreases. She starts asking herself, not consciously, but emotionally, what is this dynamic really becoming? And here's the key advice. If you notice less spontaneity, don't chase harder. Instead, reintroduce emotional variety, different contexts, different energy states, not just more communication. Because once she moves into observation mode, pressure kills attraction faster than silence ever could. Transition. And this shift rarely happens randomly. It's usually triggered by one specific behavioral pattern from men. There was a time when she didn't know what to expect from you. That unpredictability created emotional stimulation, but slowly, your behavior becomes consistent in a way that removes contrast. Same tone, same availability, same emotional response. Psychologically, attraction thrives on contrast. Not chaos, but variation. The brain pays attention to differences, not repetition. When everything becomes predictable, dopamine response drops. Not because you did something wrong, but because the emotional system adapts. Practical shift here is simple. Stop trying to be constantly understood and start allowing space in your presence. Change timing, context, emotional pacing. Not games, just natural unpredictability in how life unfolds around you. Transition. But even predictability isn't the real breaking point. There is something deeper that happens next. At first, emotional access to you feels earned. There is tension, curiosity, a sense that you are not fully open book. But over time, you may start over-explaining, over-sharing, or over-available emotionally. And here's the psychological reality. When emotional access becomes too easy, perceived value drops. This is not manipulation. It's how human valuation systems work. The brain assigns value based on effort and emotional investment signals. If she can access all your thoughts, moods, and attention without friction, her mind subconsciously stops assigning weight to it. The solution is not emotional coldness. It's emotional boundaries. Some thoughts are processed privately, not immediately externalized. Because mystery is not what you say less. It's what you hold internally before you express. Transition. But even this is still not the final trigger. The real shift is more internal in her. At the beginning, she seeks reassurance. Does he like me? Where is this going? But when attraction starts fading, that question changes. It becomes, what am I actually experiencing here? This is a cognitive transition from emotional dependence to emotional evaluation. She is no longer trying to feel secure with you. She is trying to understand the emotional cost of staying engaged. And this is where many men panic. They increase reassurance, attention, or emotional intensity. But that actually pushes her further into analysis mode. The better response is grounded consistency. No emotional overcorrection, no chasing confusion, just stable presence. Transition. Now here's where things get even more interesting, because there's a moment that almost every man misreads completely. Let me ask you something directly. Have you ever noticed that sometimes the more effort you put in, the more distant she becomes? It feels illogical, right? But in psychology, this is called over-adjustment response. When one person increases emotional intensity to fix uncertainty, the other person often reduces engagement to regain balance. So the question is, are you actually losing her, or are you accidentally pushing her into emotional withdrawal without realizing it? This is the most critical phase. She starts feeling like she is slightly more emotionally invested in figuring things out than actually enjoying the connection. And humans don't stay where effort outweighs reward. Not in relationships, not in anything. This is where attraction doesn't collapse. It rebalances. She pulls back not because she dislikes you, but because the emotional equation feels off. Your job here is not to escalate intensity. It is to restore emotional equilibrium through grounded presence and self-direction. A man with direction outside the relationship automatically resets this balance without words. Transition. And if this phase continues unchecked, something very quiet happens next. This is subtle, but powerful. She stops seeing you as emotionally stimulating possibility and starts seeing you as familiar presence. Familiarity is not bad, but in attraction psychology, it often reduces dopamine-driven engagement unless balanced with emotional depth or direction. Once this mental category shift happens, her responses become polite instead of emotionally invested. At this stage, many men think they need to do more. But doing more usually reinforces the familiarity rather than reversing it. The real shift happens when your life, identity, and emotional state show evolution, not repetition. If you look at all of this together, something important becomes clear. She didn't suddenly lose interest in you. She lost interest in a version of the dynamic that stopped evolving, and that's the part most men misunderstand. They personalize it. They think it's about worth, about appearance, about competition. But in reality, attraction is not a fixed judgment. It's a living emotional system that responds to energy, contrast, and psychological movement. The real lesson here is not how to keep her interested. It's how to stay mentally and emotionally dynamic enough that the connection never becomes emotionally stagnant in the first place. Because love doesn't usually end with a moment of rejection. It ends with a quiet shift from feeling, to analyzing, to detaching, without anyone noticing the exact point it began. If this resonated with you, you probably recognize at least one moment in your past where this pattern made sense in hindsight. And I want to ask you something. Have you ever felt that shift happen, but only understood it after it was already too late? Share your experience in the comments. In the next video, I'll break down something even deeper: the specific behaviors that reverse emotional withdrawal before it becomes permanent. Because once you understand timing in attraction psychology, everything changes. And remember this, people don't drift away suddenly, they drift away silently. Until silence becomes distance.